Election clerks across Colorado are fixing their errors in information that went to voters, and in some cases, blaming critics for their own mistakes.
It's easy to shoot your mouth off and say, that's the way it would work.
Senator Michael Bennet says his challenger doesn't understand how the Senate works. We ask Bennet why he's had such a hard time getting his top priorities passed. Heidi Ganahl's campaign pulls out of a campaign event featuring a man who has suggested the current governor should be killed. Volunteer firefighters are happy to help, but, they'd like a little in return. They say what they're working with now isn't going to cut it. Man, this has been a week. I could use some good news.
My good news is a beautiful day in Denver, Colorado.
All right, we'll start there, and we'll look for more on Next. Give election officials credit for fixing their mistakes, but there have been a bunch this week, just as ballots go out next Monday. Arapahoe County's Democratic clerk is the latest to say they messed up. The ad in yesterday's Centennial Citizen newspaper reminds voters that ballots are on the way and they have to be returned by November 1st. Nope, that's not it. That is totally not Election Day. Election Day would be November 8th. That is a week later. That is the last day that you have to make sure that your ballot is in the hands of election workers. Arapahoe County Clerk Joan Lopez says the mistake will be corrected in future ads. Another error today from Denver Clerk Paul Lopez's office. They forgot to print the argument against a ballot measure in the voter guide that went out in the mail. They're going to send out a correction with the argument against the ballot measure at a cost of $191,000. The Denver Clerk's office is also sending out a corrected page for an error we told you about yesterday. That was in the Spanish language voter guide. Of course, this week kicked off with the big daddy of all errors. Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold's office corrected an error that sent voter registration reminders to 30,000 people who are not eligible to vote. Today, the head of the Colorado County Clerks Association suggested that clerks are being unfairly targeted for criticism.
I think what we're seeing is the bad actors, continue to raise the volume on what they're pushing out. They seize on any mistake. If there is a mistake that happens that's not nefarious, these people will take that and create this whole narrative around that. So we see increased efforts to try to cause errors and mistakes so that they can continue to build lies and feed their grift, whether it's for political or financial purposes.
That's Matt Crane, who leads the County Clerks Association, former Republican clerk in Arapahoe County. He says that right now clerks around the state are being swamped with open records requests, which Crane says he thinks are an attempt to uncover errors and to overload the system. Just so everybody's on the same page, we do want errors uncovered. Yeah? All right. Good talk. See you out there. Republican Heidi Ganahl's campaign for governor is pulling out of a campaign event featuring an election conspiracy theorist who suggested that Democratic Governor Jared Polis should be executed. The event is still being advertised on the Colorado Mountain Republicans Club website. Ganahl's lieutenant governor pick Danny Moore was supposed to appear alongside a fellow election denier, Joe Oltmann. The event was dubbed "Come and Get More Excited About Heidi." The event was first reported by the Colorado Times-Recorder. Ganahl's campaign now says they will not be attending the event with Oltmann, and they said that they did not know he was involved when they signed up. Oltmann's the founder of the right-wing group FEC United, and he's the guy pushing conspiracy theories that Denver-based Dominion Voting Systems rigged the election with Antifa. Oltmann also has a well-publicized history of calling for his political opponents to be killed. Democratic Governor Jared Polis responded to all this on social media today, saying, quote, "I'm definitely not going to this event." Democratic Senator Michael Bennet is leaning into his close ties with President Biden as Election Day nears. Biden won Colorado, but polls show most Coloradans do not currently approve of the job Biden's doing as president. Today, I sat down with Senator Bennet to talk about Republican criticism that he should be getting more done in Washington, as well as talking about his support for President Biden.
It's easy to shoot your mouth off and say, that's the way it would work.
Democratic Senator Michael Bennet is talking about his opponent, Republican Joe O'Dea, who says that Bennet should hold out to get more for his state the way some centrist Democrats do in the Senate. Priorities like keeping Space Command here after former President Trump ordered it moved to Alabama.
I think politicizing this decision in the wake of what Donald Trump did would be catastrophic for our national security and probably catastrophic for Space Command's chances of staying here in Colorado.
Bennett has been unable to achieve one of his top priorities, permanently expanding the child tax credit. A 6-month experiment during the pandemic cut child poverty by 30%, according to Columbia University researchers.
That's the biggest reduction in childhood poverty ever in the United States of America.
What does it tell you that you got to implement it? People got to see it, and you still can't get it permanently?
Exactly.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that I didn't convince Joe Manchin. One person. And you're right, I didn't convince Joe Manchin. And we have, I believe, a principled disagreement about this.
Bennett's CORE Act to protect wilderness lands in Colorado is currently blocked by Republicans. So President Biden came to Colorado this week to unilaterally protect some of those lands through executive order. Former President Trump was far more aggressive in using executive orders to work around congressional stalemates.
Generally speaking, what do you think about that approach?
Generally speaking, I'd rather have a functional government. Generally speaking, I'd rather have...
In lieu of that?
What?
In lieu of a functional government?
No, but I'm saying, no, we need a functional government. We can't accept the rubble that this generation of American politicians has created,
Bennett is standing by President Biden, even with Biden's approval numbers significantly underwater in Colorado, and questions about whether Biden should run again.
President Biden turns 80 in November. You get more up close and personal time with the president than most Americans do. Do you have any concerns about his physical or mental ability to do the job for another 6 years?
I don't. No, I just spent an hour with him on the way to Camp Hale from the Eagle Airport, and he's obviously going to have to make that judgment himself. But I think, I'm very grateful as an American, and honestly, not as a Democrat, as an American, and not as a senator, but as a citizen of Colorado. I'm extremely grateful that he ran for president, because I think he was the only American out of 330 million people who could have beaten Donald Trump. And I think it would have been catastrophic for our country if Donald Trump had been reelected president. And I think if Joe Biden decides that he's up to it and decides that he's going to run again, I think he'd beat Donald Trump again, and we need to.
If he asked you whether he should run again, what would you tell him?
I'd tell him it's up to him.
My full unedited interview with Senator Bennett and the one with his Republican challenger Joe O'Dea are on 9news.com. Bennett and O'Dea will debate on 9 News October 28th. That'll cap off our series of 6 debates over the next 2 weeks, following our debates in Colorado's 7th Congressional District and all of the statewide offices except the governor. Republican candidate Heidi Ganahl declined our invitation to debate Democratic Governor Jared Polis here. Full schedule of debates is on 9news.com, or you can text the word debate to 303-871-1491. If abusers think that they can get away with it because their target doesn't know where to find help in their small town, the Vistas program is there to make sure that the survivor can escape. If an abuser tries to use a language barrier to isolate a victim, Vistas is there with bilingual support for a 24-hour hotline to, if it's needed, years of therapy and even help going through the court process. That's why your latest Word of Thanks microgiving campaign has raised more than $13,000 in a couple of days for the Vistas program, which is a project of the nonprofit Servicios de la Raza. They provide bilingual services to survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other crimes across Colorado. If you scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, I will send you that link to join me and a bunch of other Coloradans in giving to this program. Vistas makes sure that Coloradans who are targeted with abuse and violence are not alone. Really appreciate what you are doing to help them reach even more of our neighbors. Colorado's volunteer firefighters sacrifice their time and often their health to help others. They're not getting the essentials they say they need in return. And there are some of us still in the dark about daylight saving time. We'll shed some light on where the saving time thing stands in Colorado now. Next. The state government says it's unacceptable how our volunteer firefighters are being treated. They are the majority of Colorado's firefighters, and many are responding to emergencies without the right gear. Some firefighters told our Anusha Roy they signed up even knowing that they might not be well protected.
The folks who work out of the West Douglas County Fire Protection District carry a big responsibility.
My first urge to be a part of the department was to save my own home when there's a wildfire.
It's a big responsibility for an all-volunteer team, juggling day jobs, families, and emergencies.
Let's go do it.
Thomas Jordan was 26 years Air Force and an American Airlines pilot.
I just retired 11 days ago.
It's really rewarding.
Alex Horn owns his own mortgage company. Their fellow firefighters are carpenters, engineers, and architects.
When I'm home, it's really fighting the department and my wife because she wants me there as much as possible. And when you just put the steak on the grill, the horn goes off.
They've missed work events with their kids and family gatherings to be there when someone calls 911.
In the last 10 years, we've had a few fires up the canyon, structure fires and wildland fires.
These firefighters know they are making these sacrifices, but are not sure what they're giving up when they put their gear on.
I wouldn't want John here going out on a wildland fire with holes in his PPE.
The coat and the pants and the helmet is about 2001.
The two major things that kill firefighters is heart attack and cancer.
The gear they have now is heavy and it's hard to clean off toxic materials.
This is the bunker gear.
The new gear should address both of those problems, funded through legislation passed this year.
They're a little thicker, a little heavier.
Upwards of 70% of the firefighters in Colorado are volunteers working with agencies that don't have the budget to cover all of their needs. And as the state started visiting trainings, they were terrified of what they saw.
And to think that their health and their safety could be compromised due to the age of the equipment they're using is terrifying.
It can change the way they respond, whether a rescue is realistic, and how to tackle a house fire.
Certainly, I hope it extends my life.
Their families are hoping for the same too.
It's nerve-wracking to think, well, what if he loses oxygen?
Families and firefighters alike are sharing that relief, knowing regardless their commitment to their community would stay the same.
It's going to help us to be better at what we do.
And that's particularly telling because the state got $17 million worth of requests for new gear from volunteer firefighters with only $5 million to give. So they did reach 84 agencies. $200,000 of that is going towards West Douglas. There is another piece of legislation already setting aside another $10 million over the next 2 years to go towards that gear. But at this point, they're just trying to catch up with what everybody needs.
I imagine if they're only getting a small portion of the money that they asked for, they're not going out and getting like the Gucci fire gear.
No. I mean, we're not even talking top of the line or anything like that. We're just talking the standard stuff that meets that safety standard for these firefighters. And I think it's important to remember that a lot of times these volunteers are the first ones on the scene based off of where they live. And we're talking about the big fires we've seen here in the state.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And not just in rural Colorado. That's what folks need to remember. Not just rural Colorado. All right, Anusha, thank you.
As the days get shorter, we've heard questions from several of you wondering if you'll have to set your clocks back in November. Tonight's next question comes from Mike Schneider, who wants to know whether the state is sticking with daylight saving time for good.
Yeah, Mike, get ready to set the clock back an hour on November 6th, at least for one more year, perhaps longer. So in June, Governor Polis signed a bill that would allow Colorado to stay on daylight saving time year-round. That would mean brighter evenings and darker mornings in the winter months. But as Lee Corso always says, not so fast, my friend. Colorado cannot lock the clocks until the federal government passes a law either mandating permanent daylight saving time or allowing states to decide for themselves. A number of bills dealing with that subject have gotten stuck in Congress. Imagine that. Even if they passed, Colorado would still need agreement from 4 other states in the Mountain Time Zone. There are 4 holdouts. So for now, we change our clocks twice a year.
Today, it didn't feel much like fall out there. If you had any outdoor plans, it was nice and warm. Now we're finally starting to cool down, but only to around 70 degrees at DIA. We also had a pretty breezy afternoon. Those winds are calming down as we get closer to sunset, now coming in from the northeast at around 6 miles per hour. Temperatures across the Front Range and Eastern Plains mostly in the upper 60s to low 70s. You can see those warmer temperatures further southeast. We're in the 50s and 60s in the high country right now, and we're seeing low 70s out west in Grand Junction. So we have a low pressure system off off to our northeast that is going to push this very weak cool front into Colorado as we go throughout the day tomorrow. So we're going to see a big change in temperatures from what we saw today to what we'll see tomorrow. Tomorrow it's going to be more seasonal in the upper 60s, not like those 70s we were seeing this afternoon. Tonight, though, we will be mostly clear. We'll see those temperatures dropping into the low 40s. We do have a frost advisory that'll be in effect overnight, technically 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. tomorrow, but of course overnight hours. And this is going to be because we're going to see these temperatures dropping between 31 to 37 degrees as we go into those late night hours. Tomorrow, though, will be partly cloudy. We're going to wait for a little bit of cloud cover to push in, pushing that, dropping those temperatures into the mid 60s for our day. So we're going to wait for more seasonal weather. We'll start the day very sunny, but as that very weak cool front pushes in, it'll bring in some cloud cover, cooler temperatures. We are likely to stay dry. We'll see another front push temperatures even cooler on Sunday.
320 weeks in, your Friday good news is still going strong.
I absolutely believe in good news.
So do we. Let's hit the road in search of something to smile about at the end of the week. That's next.
We have ended the week on a positive note every Friday here for the last 6 years, and that's the way we're going to do it till they take us off the air. Our search for good news today takes us to Denver's Berkeley Lake Park.
Oh, look at his little eyes, his little feet. Isn't that cool? There's his antenna. It is a perfect fall day here at Berkeley Lake Park. It is absolutely gorgeous. The trees are in full fall foliage. We're bringing kids from one of the local schools over here for a pond ecology class today.
I am a believer in good news. I encounter it every day working with students like this, and just seeing them learn and grow is good news for me every day that I encounter.
My good news is the next generation are hard at work learning to appreciate the natural resources that we have here in Colorado.
My good news is a beautiful day in Denver, Colorado, and go Broncos!
My good news is my son Eli took his first step today. It's a great day, yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, he did it.
Did he do it at home or out here?
At home. I was the only one who witnessed it. It was just one step, but we did it.
It is my Friday, and I'm going to enjoy the Dracula ballet tonight.
My good news is I had a granddaughter born this week.
My good news is it's great to live in Colorado because we always have beautiful weather, so just get out and enjoy the nature.
We always have beautiful weather. I suppose that's subjective. We always have interesting weather. Give you that. You get the final word in your feedback next. Barbara watched the 8th congressional debate here last night and said, even though I was not in the district for the race, I wanted to hear from the two candidates and look forward to hearing the rest. Hope you'll join us for those. See you next time.